All right, well, thank you for checking out my messy shop. Today we are going to be making a wooden six-pack holder with a magnetic catch and a bottle opener on the side. These are really easy to make. They are great projects for people looking to get started into woodworking. It's something quick, relatively easy, and you don't need a whole lot of tools to do it. I use a nail gun, I use a bandsaw, I use a table saw, I use a drill press. Honestly, if you have a hammer and nails, you can do it with that. If you have a circular saw, a jigsaw, something like that, you can definitely use those. And you can use a hand drill instead of a drill press. I just happen to have them, but that doesn't mean that you need them for this project. So wood-wise, all you need is a small little piece of 1/4 inch plywood, and that's for the divider. So I use a 4-inch strip by a couple feet or so. Pretty cheap, pretty easy to get a hold of. I use a 3/4 inch dowel rod. I use a 1x6, and I use some 1.5 inch slat, and that's for those side pieces. If you happen to have some wood laying around, a lot of this can be made out of scrap wood. It's nothing really crazy from there. So to start, you want to measure off your initial pieces, and the 3 big pieces, that's the 2 uprights and the base, that's 11 inches tall, and then 10 inches wide. So you need 2 11-inch pieces, 1 10-inch piece. The slats are all going to measure 10 inches across, and you can cut those up whenever you'd like. Now, what you want to do is you want to go ahead and get your pieces cut, and then you have to make that A-frame. The A-frame is where you can kind of really make it yours. You want to make a crazy design, go for it. All I do is measure up 5 inches from the base, and I mark it right there, and then I go to the center of that board, and I go 1/2 inch on either side. So that's going to give me a 1-inch top section, and then I just cut those triangles off. It makes a nice A-frame. I usually measure about 3/4 of an inch to an inch below the top. That's going to be the spot for the dowel rod. And then I come up from the bottom on one side, and that's for the magnet catch, and I measure 4 inches up from there. So from that base, you have 4 inches where I'm actually going to put that magnet embedded in the side. Once I cut off the corners, I'm going to go ahead and use the drill press, and I'm going to make my holes for the dowel rod, and I'm going to make my holes for the magnet. So I use a Forstner bit. You can drill all the way through if you'd like, especially with the dowel rod, but you need a little bit longer dowel rod for that. Kind of a neat look. I like the edges, the sides, to actually be flat, and so you can't see that dowel rod, so I go about halfway in. Be sure to set the stop on your drill press so you don't push all the way through, and if you're doing it by hand, it might be worth your time to actually mark the bit itself to make sure you're not going too deep into it and that you're going to go out the back side. So go ahead, use the drill press, use your hand drill, make those holes, and then it's kind of time for that first assembly. So what I do is I make that left side first. Doesn't really matter which side you choose. Nail it in place. Again, I'm using a nail gun. You can use something else. And then you want to make sure that you measure your dowel rod. If you're going all the way through, make it 10 inches. You're going to be good. If you're not going all the way through, you're going to need probably about 9.5 inches. You might need to cut a little bit more off, go from there. You want to build that L bracket, insert the dowel rod, and then finish off that side. If you do the 2 sides first, you're not going to be able to get that dowel rod in if you are trying to make the sides nice and flat. Then it comes time to putting on the side slats. Just go ahead. I like to cover up the seam from the top and the bottom on the side. I use 4 staples on the bottom ones and then just 2 on the top. It's just cosmetic, not a big deal. After that, you want to go and you want to make the divider. Dividers are a little bit interesting. It takes a little bit more trial and error and some better measurements. I measure on that inside to get my small ones, and then I measure the inside to get the long one as well. I'm using a router here to make it nice and easy, make them slide in really well, especially when you go to glue them. But you don't have to. Again, you can use a saw, you can use a table saw, you can use a lot of different options. And if you want to get really elaborate with this thing, you can. You can do dovetail joints to make it look really, really flashy. You can make them all with hand tools. More power to you. I do this for fun. These are great little gifts. They're relatively inexpensive to make, and you can personalize them really easy if you do some wood burning, or if you have a laser engraver, which is what I use to make them really personal. I finish mine off with a nice stain, just kind of a dark stain. I've seen them painted. You can whitewash them. That looks really good. There's just a lot of different finishes. You can choose to make it personalized, but after you stain it, let it dry. Then you want to glue your dividers together. You want to make sure that those stay. Go ahead and put in your magnet and glue that in place. You can actually put a nice piece of metal on the other side to make sure that magnet really draws to the front. And then you want to put on your bottle opener. If you're going down to a big box store to buy a bottle opener, you may need to cut those screws or find different screws that will not go through your wood. Some of them have screws that are about an inch, inch and a half long. Well, your 1x6 is really only going to have about, I don't know, what, 3/4 of an inch worth of wood? If that, less than that maybe. So be mindful that you don't want your screws to go through the wood. If you have questions, leave them in the comments below. You'll be seeing me make some other projects, and if you have any questions about it, just let me know. Don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and hope you make a couple for some friends for this holiday season. Thanks.